4,300 years ago, a woman sat down and wrote her name. She wrote hymns of extraordinary power, poems of grief, devotion, exile, and return. She described herself as the high priestess of the greatest goddess in the world. She was the first human being in recorded history to sign their creative work. Not the first man, the first person. Her name was Enheduanna, and almost nobody knows it. This is the Long Betrayal, a series about 5,000 years of power, how it was taken, how it was kept, and who paid the price. We start at the very beginning, before Rome, before the church, before the empires that shaped the world most of us were taught to think of as history. We start in Mesopotamia, 5,000 years ago. And what we find there is not what most of us were taught. The world that existed then, what was worshipped, who held power, what was genuinely believed, is the opening chapter of a story that has never fully been told, until now. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what is now Iraq, something is happening that has never happened anywhere on Earth before. People are building cities. Uruk, Ur, Eridu, Lagash, Nippur. The largest of them holds tens of thousands of people. To hold all of this together, to track the grain, the cattle, the labor, the debt, these people invent writing. The first cuneiform tablets date to around 3,200 BCE. The earliest ones are accounting records, lists of grain, numbers of sheep. But writing, once invented, refuses to stay within the limits its inventors set for it. Within a few centuries, those same clay tablets are recording law, mythology, hymns, astronomy, and medicine. And at the absolute center of these first cities, architecturally, politically, spiritually, is a goddess. Her name is Inanna. She is not a marginal figure, not a decorative consort to a more important male god. Inanna is the supreme deity of the Sumerian world, the goddess of love, war, justice, fertility, and political power. All of those things simultaneously, without contradiction. She is the morning and evening star. She bestows kingship. Without her blessing, no ruler is legitimate. Her temple in Uruk, the Enheduanna, the house of heaven, is the cultural and economic epicenter of the city. The city exists around her. This is a world in which the most powerful divine force is female. Hold that, because we will need it. Now meet Enheduanna, born around 2285 BCE, daughter of Sargon of Akkad, the world's first empire builder. Sargon appointed her high priestess of Inanna at Ur, partly to bind the conquered city's religious authority to his own political project. A genius move in ancient statecraft. What he may not have anticipated is what his daughter would do with that role. Enheduanna wrote, prolifically, brilliantly, with a voice of extraordinary personal force. Her surviving works, 3 long hymns to Inanna and a collection of temple hymns, run to thousands of lines. They are not the generic compositions of a court functionary. They are personal, passionate, and in some cases raw. In her most powerful hymn, The Exaltation of Inanna, she describes being violently expelled from her position during a political uprising. Stripped of her office, forced into exile. She writes, I am Enheduanna, the high priestess of Inanna. I carried the ritual basket. I chanted the hymns of praise. Now I have been cast out to the place of lepers. Then she turns to Inanna directly. She argues her case. She reminds the goddess of her own power, the wars she has won, the mountains she has made to bow, and asks, why do you allow this to happen to your own priestess? The hymn ends with Enheduanna restored, her voice returned, her name spoken again. The scholar Betty Deschamps-Meter, who has spent decades translating Enheduanna's work, calls her the Shakespeare of ancient Sumer. And the comparison holds. Enheduanna introduced poetic forms that would shape religious literature for thousands of years. The Psalms of the Hebrew Bible echo her structures. Her influence ran forward through the ancient world, through many hands, many centuries, and many faiths. She signed all of it. In a world where most creative work was anonymous, she insisted on being known. Now, the goddess she served, because Inanna's most important myth is not about power or war. It is about death and what comes after. In the descent of Inanna, she travels to the underworld. At each of its 7 gates, she must surrender one piece of her divine regalia: her crown, her lapis lazuli necklace, her robe. By the time she reaches the throne of her sister Ereshkigal, she stands naked, stripped of everything. She is struck dead, her body hung on a hook on the wall. She is there for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, she is resurrected. The food and water of life are brought to her. She rises. She reclaims everything, gate by gate, and returns to the world of the living. Death. 3 days. Resurrection. This story was already ancient when Christianity was new. Osiris in Egypt, killed and raised by the goddess Isis, predates the Christian version by 2,000 years. Attis in Phrygia dies and is resurrected at the spring equinox. Dionysus in Greece. The death and resurrection narrative was not invented by Christianity. It was inherited from a tradition that placed a goddess, not a man, at its center. The theologian Tikva Frymer-Kensky spent her career tracing what happened to the goddess traditions of the ancient Near East as monotheism developed. What she found was not a simple replacement. The goddess's attributes were not destroyed, they were transferred. Her wisdom became divine wisdom, located in a male god. Her creative power became the power of a male creator. The feminine didn't disappear from the divine. It was, in Frymer-Kensky's word, depersonalized, stripped of its female character and absorbed into a male theological framework. And Enheduanna herself, buried under 4,000 years of male literary history, was not rediscovered until the 1960s, when scholars finally examined what the cuneiform tablets in museum collections actually contained. She had been there the whole time, in the archive, waiting. The people who expelled her are nameless. She is not. Enheduanna's hymns survive in 88 copies made by ancient scribes across hundreds of years. They were considered worth preserving, worth copying, worth teaching. Her voice was not silenced. The goddess Inanna survived too, transformed across millennia, suppressed in some periods, but never entirely gone. The resurrection story survived. The idea of the divine feminine survived, because some things refused to disappear. In the next episode, we follow what happened to the goddess as the world changed around her. The change was not accidental. This is the beginning of a long story. A new episode is released each week.